This is the Defenders podcast on TV Podcast Industries, and we're talking about Hawkeye, the final episode, episode 6. So this is Christmas.
Clint, this is my mess to clean up. You should go home. You should be with your family. You can still make it in time for Christmas.
Kate, you're my partner. Your mess is my mess. I'm not going anywhere until this is finished.
Welcome back, fellow Defenders. It is the season to be jolly, and we're talking about the jolliest of episodes from Hawkeye. So this is Christmas. This is the Defenders podcast on TV Podcast Industries, and I am one of your hosts, John.
I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
And rounding out this festive trio of hall-decked, apparel-based men, I am Chris.
Chris is joking. I know we don't have a video podcast, but I've made everybody wear Christmas jumpers, even on our audio podcast, and Christmas hats. So, sorry, guys.
You can't hear it, but I'm actually jingle-jangling my head.
What a way to finish out the season of Hawkeye. We knew it was going to be Christmassy, but this was a very special Christmas episode, wasn't it?
It was very Christmas.
It was very Christmassy, but I guess also a lot of death thrown in there as well. Tracksuit.
So Christmas, yeah.
Yes, tracksuit mafia decks the skating rink with blood and arrows. Yes, indeed.
La 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 la.
That is certainly a sort of a new design for the Rockefeller Christmas decorations. Yes,
it is. Yes, it is.
Tinsel, it ain't.
We will be getting into our spoiler-filled discussion about Hawkeye in a moment, but did you guys recognize some of the little references to Christmas movies that we got throughout this episode of Hawkeye?
A few, yes.
Yeah. I picked up a couple. We have Home Alone, where they're building all of their trap arrows or all their trick arrows. Definitely a Home Alone reference in there. Noticed Die Hard was in there, where both Kate and Clint are sitting side by side on the back of the ambulance. That's the end of Die Hard for you. Any other ones that you guys picked up?
No, I got the Home Alone one.
Right.
For sure.
I don't watch Christmas films.
Chris, we need more Christmas films in your life.
Yeah,
I need less Christmas films. I need more Marvel in my life.
There you go.
Yes, I didn't catch the Love Actually bit where there were signs going.
Where you try and steal your best friend's wife. Oh, yeah, so Christmassy, I forgot.
And I know it's the end of 2021. This is our 101st podcast of the year. You're most likely subscribed to the podcast if you're listening to our voices right now. But if you haven't subscribed, please pop over to our website at tvpodcastindustries.com. Subscribe to us over there on any good or villainous podcast catcher to pick up all of our podcasts. We're currently covering Wheel of Time as well. Our final podcast about that will be out just after Christmas because it's coming out on Christmas Eve. And unfortunately, I couldn't get the guys to record that day.
I would, but come on.
Yeah, they would have
our additional families will probably kill us.
Yes.
Let's be fair.
Yes, true. But we also have recorded our podcast about Spider-Man No Way Home as well. That's available on our main feed on tvpodcastindustries.com as well. We'd also love to hear from you about your thoughts about any of the shows that we've covered this year. You can email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com with your thoughts about anything that we've covered. We will be doing wrap-up podcasts for both Hawkeye and Wheel of Time in the new year as well. So we'd love to hear your thoughts about how those shows have gone for you.
Yes, but without further ado, let us get into our festive, spoiler-filled discussion of Hawkeye Episode 6. Derek, what are some of the episode details?
Well, the showrunner for the show throughout the season so far has been Jonathan Igla. He is also the writer of this episode, along with Eliza Clement, who wrote episode 2 of this season of Hawkeye. The episode was directed by Rhys Thomas, who directed the first 2 episodes of this season. So he's directed 3 episodes of the 6 episodes of the show. So, the main director on the show as well, I guess.
Yeah, good stuff. And again, the theory, Jonathan Igla writing the final episode as the showrunner, all good.
Yeah, the theory that if the showrunner of the show is writing it, that means it's a good episode of a season, right?
Yes, that's what we usually think.
They didn't run away and decide to move on to another project like a certain showrunner did back in Marvel Netflix days. That's basically where we got that from. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us, speaking of Marvel Netflix, with your synopsis of this episode of Hawkeye? So this is Christmas.
Sure. Kingpin exerts his presence on the situation with Eleanor and their working relationship. Despite all she has done, from murdering Armand III and framing Jack Duquesne, she draws the line at what must happen to her daughter, Kate Bishop, as she tries to extract herself from New York's criminal mastermind. With the Kingpin involved, things get real as he looks to clean up the threat to his interests from Eleanor's insurance policy and the meddling intrusion of Hawkeye and Kate. If things weren't bad enough, Kingpin also realizes that his niece, Maya Lopez, knows the truth of her father's death and has turned on him and his operations. But he is resolved that the people need to be reminded that the city of New York belongs to him, the Kingpin. At Bishop Security's Christmas Do, the competing interests collide, prepared with new trick arrows and with their LARPer friends embedded at the party as waiters. Kate and Clint Barton work together to foil the murder of Eleanor. The party is crashed by Kazi and his sniper rifle, as he can take down not only Eleanor but Hawkeye and his partner, Kate Bishop. As chaos rings out through the guests, the LARPers get them to safety and are assisted by a sword-wielding Jack Duquesne, who has been released from police custody. At the Battle of Rockefeller, Clint and Kate fight the hordes of Tracksuit Mafia. As Clint looks to nullify Kazi, another uninvited guest, Yelena Belova, is hot on his heels. She catches up with him to kill him, but Clint finally gets through to her when he shares Natasha's secret whistle with her sister, explaining that no one could have stopped the Black Widow once she had decided to sacrifice herself. Elsewhere, Maya confronts and kills an unrepentant Kazi for his role in the murder of her father. While Kate confronts Kingpin and finally bests him before turning her mother over to the police for the murder of Armand III, Kingpin drags himself away before the NYPD can find him. But Maya comes to take revenge for her father's murder. Clint finally makes it home to his family with Kate and Lucky the pizza dog in tow. Former S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Laura gets her watch back as the Barton family celebrate Christmas together and settle in to watch the mid-credit song from the fantastical, magical Rogers the Musical.
They could do this all day. Yes.
They really could.
Yeah, that
So
song
could
is
I,
maybe
to be honest.
Stuck in my head for quite a long time. I think after this show.
Yes, the ending was spectacular and I enjoyed it, but there should have been a second one. I feel like we're missing out. I like the tease of, ooh, this is coming. And Rogers the Musical was fun, but it's not unless they're going to actually release Rogers the Musical, the whole show and series, I'm like, eh.
Quick question, Chris. Did you like the shawarma post-credit scene?
The original in the event,
Yeah.
Avengers Assemble? Yeah, I did, of course.
Yeah,
I love
same
shawarma.
thing. About as meaningful as the Rogers one, I guess.
That's true.
That's my view.
That is true. Fair point.
Yeah.
Fair. But that was one of the originals. So that was like phase one. We weren't trained to expect.
Mm-hmm.
We are basically Pavlov's dog, the audience, right now. It's like they ring the bell of the post-credit scene of the credits, and we expect a post-credit scene.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the last post-credit scene that we got on a live-action Marvel show was the announcement that Loki was getting a season 2. So no season 2 announcement for
Nope.
Hawkeye on this episode. That may be added to it in a week's time. That used to happen on old shows as well in the past that we've covered. But this is the kind of outro to it. And I think you're right, John. It's a fun closing credit scene, similar to the Iron Man 3 scene with Tony Stark talking to Bruce Banner. A pointless, useless scene at the end of a show, but a bit of fun.
Yeah, a
Something
fun
to
one
something
for
to laugh
a
at.
Christmas series.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Will we get into our arrow points?
Let's do it. Because we can do this all day. No, we can't. We've actually got a tight deadline, so
We
let's
certainly
move on.
do.
We certainly do. Christmas is calling. Let's get into our top 5 arrow points with arrow point number 1. Eleanor threatens Fisk. Yes.
Yeah, I think we should start off here.
I think so.
Yeah.
She has got, dare I say it, nerves, kahunas and nerves of steel that, she is effectively drawing that line in the sand.
Yeah.
I will do many things for you, Mr. Fisk, but I am not going to take out my own daughter. And fair enough to her. She has prepared. She does have her sort of evidence, her insurance policy. Not that that really matters with Kingpin. He is pretty determined, but you know, just starting this episode with the Kingpin, that scene, and also then following that through with the scene with Maya and Kazi with him. Wow. We were talking about this in the last episode about, are they even going to have him in this final episode? And boy, did they have him in this final episode, and to some extent put him really front and center. He is so good, as always, is Vincent D'Onofrio.
Absolutely, yeah.
But he's going to Hawaii. I have that one dress code at the end. I was like, is he in costume? Why is he dressed in a Hawaiian shirt?
If you're going to wear a white suit, you're going to have to jazz it up a bit, get a bit of style underneath it as well, right? So I love that Hawaiian shirt.
I'm not too sure, and apologies, any Hawaiian listeners, but I don't know whether a Hawaiian shirt is necessarily style. I mean, it's cool. I would have liked to have seen him in his sharp, crisp suits that we saw. Or even with the white, but being sharp and crisp. But it is ultimately a Christmas series, so I get the Hawaiian shirt. It's kind of in festive red, wasn't it?
It was.
Really?
It was.
Yeah.
It made sense.
And also, there was a great little video from Vincent D'Onofrio announcing his return for the final episode, thanking everybody for waiting for the return of his character, which I thought was really good. That feels a little overconfident from Vincent D'Onofrio, that this is why you've been watching the series, waiting for my return. I loved it. It felt really like the Kingpin character as well.
Yeah. I was shocked. In the last episode, we discussed and we were coming up, okay, is he going to be just in the kind of, he'll be there for a split second, he'd be here. Like, the fact that he was on screen for a good 15 minutes maybe total of an hour, I'm like, okay, you got a full quarter, nearly 20 minutes out of, like, Vincent D'Onofrio.
Absolutely.
Including that end scene battle.
Yeah.
I was like, did not expect any of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And also what's really good about this scene between Eleanor and Fisk is that she ties up all the kind of loose ends that we were talking about throughout the season, all the things that we weren't 100% sure on. She really ties up everything in that conversation with Fisk. She explains that when Kate's father died, they were left in massive debt. That's the reason why she went to Fisk for help. But he's been extracting that help from her for the last 20 years, basically, last 10 years, since the Battle of New York. So, she's been in his pocket. He's been constantly getting stuff out of her. But I like that he kind of says, but it's also been a good relationship for you. You've also made your career on top of this, which explains that conversation that she had with Armand right in the first episode.
Yeah.
When he threatened to expose her for everything being built on this lie, everything being built on this relationship with Kingpin.
And also it was that her husband was in debt to him. Mm-hmm. So in essence, she really had very, very little choice, but I guess once she dipped her toe into the money that she could make, she was willing to do anything until this final moment. Yeah. The only thing I would say is I know Yelena is an exceptionally good spy, but Wilson Fisk really does need to sort out his security. I mean, unless she tapped into his own security system, that effectively a significant business meeting for the criminal underworld was recorded quite so easily.
It was.
And
shared on mobile phones.
Yes.
Yeah.
It could have gone viral. In a sense, Eleanor no longer needed her insurance policy because it could have been quite easily sent on to the NYPD.
Yeah. Yeah, very much.
I was just going that Elaine has great director of photography skills. Just the placement of the camera, the angle, it's just top notch. I love this. I love that they tied the bow on this. Mm-hmm. As much as I wanted, it is like, okay, we're gonna drag things out. We'll get a season 2 where the big battles will happen. To make it as condensed into this hour and 2 minutes, hour and 3 minutes long episode. It was just, they fit a lot in, because this was the question we had last episode. How are they going to tie everything up? And I think from a Kingpin, from an Eleanor perspective, They tied the bow, they signed the card, and they attach it to the present.
Yeah,
it was all wrapped up quite nice.
Yes,
absolutely. And given that we've had 5 episodes where this threat of the Kingpin was in the background, they really did establish him here in this episode as well. If you haven't seen Marvel's Netflix shows, if you haven't seen Daredevil with Kingpin in there, they really did establish him right here in just this scene where he lists out everything that's going on. The Ronin is running around the city, and Avenger is taking an outsized interest in our operation. Eleanor Bishop thinks she could quit like this is some kind of company, and Maya has turned on him. You know, that whole kind of laydown of everything that's happened that it affects Wilson Fisk, and then him saying to Kazi, I need to remind New York that this is my city. This is the city of the Kingpin. All there, presented amazingly by Vincent D'Onofrio, showing you the character that he is without needing to see anything more. It sets up exactly who he is in this world.
Yeah, I mean, you really get the sense here that with everything that has happened previously in New York with the Avengers and just their presence, that he has kept himself, back from asserting himself, and now is the time to do that, to come back in and assert his authority on the city.
Yeah.
I thought, and again, it's just to Vincent D'Onofrio's presence. I love the scene with him and Maya. He does the little twitch of the lip, which seems to affect his eye. There was that quiver in his voice when he says, "Oh my Maya," when he realizes that she has turned on him, that she knows the information for that decision by her and what must transpire to protect his interests. I think it's only a small thing. The only thing I think I really missed here is, okay, we knew Maya was suspicious, but effectively at the moment, it's just simply on that conversation she had with Clint from episode 5. And I think maybe if there was any little room for a few more minutes here, it would have been to see how she found out. Because, given the vengeance element here that was quite a big thrust of the story, I think that would have really contextualized her meeting Kingpin, being nervous not to give too much away, but know that he's such a good read of people, is the Kingpin. It would have been nice to just see how she finally connected those dots, because you didn't really get that sense here. To be honest.
Yeah, I get that. I think that just at the kind of preview, it kind of put everything together into 3 lines, just to say, Clint said to her, your boss wanted him dead, and Kazi wasn't at the meeting where her father got killed, and she's put that together. I think that's just the kind of small leap that you need to take with the character. But we've said it before, Maya's going off to her own series. We will be getting Echo series coming in the future on Marvel on Disney+.
2022, do you think?
I hope not. I hope it's 2023.
Just because we have so much on in 2022?
Yeah, exactly. Call me selfish, but I think we can just wait till 2023.
Yeah. But it is interesting. Like we will talk a little bit more about Maya in the show as we go on, but it'll be interesting to see how they lay down that character and give her a motivation for her own series as it gets there.
I have a quick question before we move on. Is this our Daredevil Netflix Wilson Fisk, or was that a multiverse and this is just a similar Wilson Fisk in the MCU? So I'm trying to establish in my head, is this the original Wilson Fisk from the Netflix, or is this just a different multiverse, multi-universe, a different, like, was the Netflix one in a different New York with the Avengers that was slightly different, and basically that one's still going over there, or as we theorized, everything was theoretically connected with Netflix, and they never called they called it the big event and the big green guy and all that. Yeah,
I think this is definitely in the universe, the MCU that we know, and so was Marvel Netflix. Yeah. I think there's too many links to, like, especially with Clint and Natasha here. It's in that universe. Oh no, sorry. Here.
This one is, yes, the MCU. I just meant is the Wilson Fisk and Daredevil that we saw. Is the Defenders, all of that, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist. is that the MCU as well in your head now that we have Wilson Fisk, and it is based on what we've seen in this episode,
I believe
it looks
so.
like our Wilson Fisk, yeah.
I believe so.
It is the same universe. All of it's the same universe. There is a way out for them in the future because we haven't seen Multiverse of Madness. We don't know how that will play out. We have seen Spider-Man No Way Home, but I don't want to spoil anything about that.
Yeah.
Because there are multiverses in the MCU now, it is possible that they could explain it away differently in the future. But right now, going by No Way Home, it would be impossible for Wilson Fisk to move over from the Netflix multiverse into our universe right now, going by what happened in No Way Home. And I don't want to spoil it for anybody because I know some people haven't seen it.
In my head, I'm saying what they can explain away is the Wilson Fisk we're seeing now is the Kingpin, has been the same, but this Kingpin never took part in the events that we saw in Daredevil in Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, they've been separate. And they go up to the same. That's how they can explain it away. I was just, his mannerisms are so much the same up until his dress sense. And that's where I went, God, you're going to get me with this one. I don't know now. God, he's wearing Hawaiian, but he has the cane. Oh, anyway.
But remember, the Marvel Netflix did mention the attack on New York City.
Yes,
and certainly with Daredevil, and it linked it into the property element of that criminal operations that he was doing.
But you see, the way they can explain this away, of course, is that the multiverses are all different in a very minor ways. Like, as we had an explanation in Loki, if you turn up 5 minutes late for work, that creates a new multiverse. So absolutely you could have an explanation that says Kingpin is the same Kingpin, except he didn't go through the events of Daredevil. That is absolutely true. I don't think he moved over from a Netflix multiverse to this universe. But I think that there's a way that they can explain that away in the future. And as we've said many times before, Kevin Feige doesn't want to send 12-year-olds who are watching Hawkeye over to Marvel Netflix to go and watch an 18's show. So I'd say they won't make a canon or reference anything. So I think there's an explanation we can all get behind if they want to give it. But if you want to see more of the awesome Vincent D'Onofrio, I'd highly recommend our listeners who are mostly over 18 to go and watch that show if they haven't watched it already.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Go watch that show and then go back and listen to 3 seasons of our blow-by-blow discussions on each episode.
Exactly.
Yeah.
On the Defenders cast, or back in all the way, tvpodcastindustries.com. It's all there.
Absolutely. I think with that little gift to our fellow Defenders, let us move on to arrow point number 2. Mm-hmm. Yes, it is Yelena on the hunt and the LARPers to the rescue.
Yeah, I think we need to get to a Christmas party. None of us have had proper Christmas parties this year, so nice to see one on screen that, even though it lasted 5 minutes, is longer than the Christmas parties that any of the three of us have had this year.
It's true.
Well, yeah, I mean, normally, I guess Christmas dues would disintegrate around arguments or whatever if it's a work one. This kind of did slightly disintegrate due to the fact that there was a sniper sending multiple bullets through the windows.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it was really nice to see the LARPers here being involved in the rescue.
Yep.
I like that they did change their outfit as well, although I'm not entirely sure why all of a sudden people began to listen to them when they were wearing their LARPer outfit.
They look like superheroes.
I thought maybe if they put on their fire suit and police uniform and so on, it could have been a nice little nod to, those emergency services, and people probably would have listened to them then.
I think it's one of those ones, if you're exiting a building and you're rushing outside and then you see somebody dressed up in their kind of LARPer costumes, you go, hang on a second, why is that guy there? Move, go to the left. You're suddenly listening to them. You're paying attention to them because you see them in their outfits.
Yeah, or even Santa and dwarf outfits.
Well, maybe, but they do actually say at the end of the episode, they call out that the LARPers are now practically Avengers.
Exactly.
So they're putting on their costumes in the same way as everybody else. Love the little nod, because remember back in episode 1 we had Kate going to one of her mother's parties wearing a full dress suit, going along because she wouldn't want to wear a dress. This time we see her in a dress, and there's a really good reason for that, because she has something planned for the big reveal of her outfit. I love that was a nice touch. And the minute I saw her going in the dress, I was going, oh, brilliant. What a great way to hide your dress, hide your new costume.
Exactly. And we do get the new costumes.
Yes.
Finally. It's not like we haven't seen them many times before in all of the promotional materials.
It's on the posters, absolutely.
Yep.
But a good reveal. At least they have them in the show. Again, you know, I made reference last week to the original Daredevil, where we only saw the costume for that last shot at the end of the season. We didn't see him in action until the second season in the costume. Whereas here, at least we get it about halfway through the episode, and we see them in their costumes throughout, which is good, right?
And Kate was as happy as we were. You wore it. Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah, they look great, didn't they?
Yeah, no, I have to say they from the Elena battle and the LARPers, that whole scene where they are running and the windows are exploding and there is that chase with Elena on the hunt, like the comic panel side scroll of Kate and Elena fighting. Literally, that was a comic panel, and that was the way it was designed. That each shot, each room was a different panel as it kind of ran through. And I was like, I've seen that before. That is Hawkeye. That is like in my life as a living weapon. That was not, obviously it wasn't Yelena there, but it was shot for shot. Like it was a fight like that as you followed the panels around the page.
Yeah.
As a choice.
Yeah, it was really
beautiful.
Good.
It was so good, wasn't it? And I love when they do things like this on a show and make sure that they have somebody sitting at their desk listening to the radio while the fight's going on around them. I love when they make those little choices to make it like a living world. It's not just a stylistic choice. Like I think Ang Lee's Hulk tried to do this, where they tried to film it like comic panels. You know, it didn't work. This is where somebody really enjoys and is putting the fun into that kind of shooting. Loved Yelena and Kate against each other in the lift. Thought it was absolutely hilarious.
Really good comedy in it. Great action. You just want to see these two together in their own TV show.
Yeah, I just love the kind of fight between the two of them as Kate's trying to push every button to stop Yelena going down the lift, and Yelena's using every Black Widow skill to stop her in that great style of fighting between the two of them. Really, really good fun. But I love that Yelena decides just to get off at the next floor and jump outside the building and drop to the 12th floor. That was, a really good choice. You kind of think, well, she's messed up her plan. Oh no, Yelena always has another way around it. Yeah.
Then followed by Kate as well, who tried to emulate that a little less successfully. And of course, you then have Clint also jumping out of the building as well, and really messing it up as well. But being caught by the Christmas tree there, and with a little owl.
Absolutely, very cute.
An owl eye, I guess, looking
very
at
cute.
him.
In the biggest Christmas tree in New York, right?
Rockefeller?
I guess so. Yeah. I guess so.
I think that's what Kate told Yelena to go and visit when she was in New York, was the biggest Christmas tree, and at least that's what Clint took his kids to earlier on in the season.
It is spectacular when you see it.
Yeah,
I've seen it once now. Actually, I've seen it twice in one trip in New York, and it was like when you see it during the day, you're like, oh, that's pretty. When you see it like it is lit up at night, you're like, oh wow,
yeah, very
cool.
Excellent.
The banter between the two of them makes me want a Hawkeye and Widow series for these two. I love what you did there with the keyboard and the backflip, I can't remember the exact words. It was along those lines. It was like when Yelena is essentially commenting how great Kate is, and the back, no. And yeah, to be fair, she grabs a mouse and whips a mouse around to capture Yelena for a second.
Yeah. Really good. And I love the kind of banter between Kate and Yelena, where Kate says to her, we should go and get a drink, trying to distract her from her mission. And Yelena goes, yes, of course, directly after I kill Clint Barton. Really good. One final note on the LARPers. I love the comedy of them trying to guide people out of the building and then realizing nobody's listening to them at all. I love the idea of going, no, you just run around, hands above your head, screaming. That's fine. Completely ignore us, because we're not in our firefighter and police officer uniforms.
At least we do know Jacques will now become a LARPer going forward. He is going to be maybe their swordsman. I was like, oh, that's how they get him. Because let's talk very quickly. Jacques single-handedly takes out 6 of the Tracksuit Mafia with a sword.
Yes.
Quite proficient. I was like, I'm down for this. Yeah, you go, sir.
A lot of death.
I was trying to work out what he was fighting against. Like he had his sword, and they're not going to show blood. They're not going to show him cutting people's arms off. But he seemed to be fighting baseball bats with his sword. Is that something you can do? Would your sword not get stuck in the baseball bat, or?
He is an excellent swordsman. He's slicing slivers off theirs. It's just like zing zing.
Yeah, I kind of just thought he was sort of doing the slash flourish across their bodies. So I guess ultimately they did bleed out. So I expect this. I expect the skating rink at the Rockefeller would turn a festive red. To be honest,
well, it was up on the pavement, so we'll say it's a mix of a beautiful grey red sparkle.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
To go with the Christmas tree.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Who needs tinsel when you have intestines?
Well, there you go. That's a pretty gruesome Christmas tree there, Chris.
that does sound like a horror one.
There is also a great moment between the Tracksuit Mafia and Kate as well, which I really liked, where we do have the member of the Tracksuit Mafia that Kate helped with his relationship problems coming back and thanking Kate while she's beating him up and putting him on the ground, where the eventual resolution is that they went to Maroon 5 instead of going to the original concert that he wanted to go to. They went to a concert that both him and his partner wanted to go to.
Yes, Maroon 5, saving relationships for a decade.
There you go. But a nice little joke there with that kind of final scene before we get into the epic showdown at Rockefeller Plaza, before the eventual arrival of thousands of members of the Tracksuit Mafia on our point number 3, the final showdown at Rockefeller Plaza. I think let's get on there.
Yes, it did feel a bit like thousands. It felt like literally every truck was opening to an army of goons running out.
Yeah.
It was a bit like, where did all these men come from?
I know.
I suppose if you're Wilson Fisk and you've got a whole team of people running everything in New York, you're going to have thousands, right? You're going to have a lot of people.
I guess so, but it did seem to be like wave after wave of tracksuits.
It was video game.
Yeah. Or it was like The Hand in the Daredevil series, where all you have to do is put a mask on and then you can just have thousands of people saying members of The Hand. That's the way they do it in here.
Yeah, but I mean, there were a lot of elements here, and which and it all came together really nicely. What with the hordes of Tracksuit Mafia descending on Clint and Kate, but also just everything around that as well. I think with Yelena and Clint on the ice rink, and where Clint is able to finally get through to her with their secret whistle, which was really nice. I'm glad that. I wasn't expecting it to end any other way, but I'm glad that it resolved how I hoped that it was going to resolve.
Yeah.
I think...
and isn't it really important, again, we talked about it this year, that Black Widow took so long to get released. It eventually got a release earlier on this year, but how important it was for that to have been released before this show, because it makes no sense otherwise. That movie starts and ends effectively with the whistle, to show the connection between Yelena and Natasha. So, really important that would have been shared with Hawkeye, because of his relationship with Natasha. And also a great callback to a lot of people who defended the death of Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow in Endgame. A lot of people were talking about it going, but if you put the two of them up against each other, Hawkeye versus Black Widow would win 100 times out of 100. And that's exactly what Clint says. There's nothing I could do to talk her down when she had chosen to sacrifice herself, but it came down to a battle between the two of us, and she won, because of course she would.
Yeah. It's interestingly, it would be, given the end credit scene from the Black Widow movie, how now does that affect Val? Given Val recruited Yelena around that notion that it was Clint Barton's fault, and she's now gotten the truth of the situation of what happened. Now, she was looking for that as well, but given that Val has effectively set her up probably on false pretenses for her own means, then that would be interesting potentially to come out of the wash somewhere in one of the other series that we have, or movies. So that again, it's just there's some nice little threads that you could see paying off down the line, which is really nice for this series to set some of those up, like Yelena and Kate Bishop. You know, that's all, I think, really nicely done, and you know, from this series.
Absolutely. And that's one of the big battles that we get in this kind of final showdown. We have to talk about it. This series is Hawkeye. This series is all about a man with trick arrows. We have to talk about this relationship with Kate and Clint reaching this point that both of them are now partners. Clint specifically says it to her. She was saying, get out of town. I'll deal with this. This is my mom's fault. I'll sort it out. Clint finally says to her, no, you're my partner. I'm staying until this is done.
Aww.
And sorting it out. Exactly. There was a bit of an moment, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah, it was really good.
But together they build the brand new trick arrows. He teaches Kate how to do it effectively. So in this final showdown, we see him using every single type of arrow. Him and Kate both using every single type of arrow. I think that the whole team behind the production could come up with. There's some great stuff. We see some Stark Tech in there with the magnetism arrows. I believe that's the Stark Tech one, which takes all the guns out of the situation. Really smart move. Like that.
We have another Pym arrow as well with the miniaturization of the Trusted Bro vehicle, which is then, you know, we taken off by the owl.
Yes,
again.
I'm glad the owl came back. I was worried it got killed in the tree coming down.
I wonder how it will dismember the tracksuit bros from the truck. Well, I guess it was getting a meal.
I think they're probably rolling up their windows. Making sure it can't get inside. But how terrifying would that be to be just
That would be pretty terrifying.
It's also that guy who lost his leg when it was frozen.
Yes, I know.
The quick freeze. I was like, you basically just amputated a guy's leg there, by the way, folks.
Kind of like Terminator 2. I was expecting his leg just to sort of crack off. I wonder, though, you know, if they have been subjected to Pym particles and maybe they are eaten by the owl, is there a situation where if the owl suddenly just exploded because the leg is reanimated to the original size if it comes in contact with Pym particles? I guess it never would, but I just thought hopefully the owl will actually leave them alone.
I'd say after a period of time, it reconstitutes to its original size. So it is only a matter of time if that owl eats anything.
See, that's the thing. I think the Ant-Man movies are the ones I've watched the least, so I just don't know the rules of when you use Pym particles. Do you stay at that size? Because we know...
No, you're right. You're right. I think because we know the keychain, the tank, has been that for years. We don't know is the answer, ladies and gentlemen.
Remember, he had the box of cars and all of them were shrunk down to the size of Matchbox cars. Yeah. So they stay there until you use another Pym particle activated. So these three miniaturized guys may come back in a post-credit scene in a show. You know, 5 years time, they've been living
that would be quite
as
awesome.
Tiny people for a decade or something. That would be fun.
Exactly. It's all miniature bros.
Yeah.
Bro. Literally is the perfect Disney Plus animated show. All these little animated bros. Hey, bro, we're gonna go get it. It's like Chippendale Rescue Rangers, but Brodale Rescue Bros.
You know, weirdly, the subtitles on Disney Plus for when they were getting dragged away by the owl said "children screaming," and I was going, "What's happened to them? What's happened to them?" That's really bizarre. Anyway, yes. So we see the use of all of the arrows here. Really good scene, and this is exactly how you do a Hawkeye TV show. You don't have just them shooting arrows into people, although Kate did hit quite a lot of people with the plain arrows. I think a lot of bros won't be going home, or at least be going to the hospital after that fight. But yeah, some great use of the trick arrows and great use of incorporating all the technology that we've seen throughout these movies as well.
Yeah.
And we get the iconic over the shoulder without looking shot from Clint Barton. Just once again showing he is the master. Yeah. She may be an apprentice and may be becoming a journeyman in her, or intermediate user. She is not as advanced as the master.
Yes. She may eventually become better than him, but she's not right now. So he's still got that style. Very, very cool. Also really nice to hear Kate actually verbalize exactly why Hawkeye is her hero. I thought that was really nice for him to hear.
That was really cool.
He said in the past he's just a killer. That's why he was able to take on the mantle of Ronin. That's all he is. He shouldn't be inspirational to anybody. And her verbalizing it to him, saying that I was scared, I saw you, and you jumped off a building without even looking, and you can't even fly. You know, you're my hero. You're the person that inspired me not to be scared in these situations. I thought it was a really good moment between the two.
And in this episode, she jumps off a building.
Yes, she does.
Without being able to fly.
Yes, she does. Yeah.
It was very, like, they did all this. So then there's going to be another little girl who was at the party looking up at Kate going, oh, wow. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's that really douchey lad who was trying to get Jacques wine.
Maybe, yes. Duquesne the 7th or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Armand Duquesne the 7th, I think. Yes, that's right.
Put me down. Do you know who I am? Loved it. Just as he was being carried away. Put me down.
Yeah. Really good fun.
But also as well here, then we have a number of other different components. We have Maya and Kazi coming to blows,
Yes, we do.
which I quite liked as well. This idea, using the same kind of language as Maya's father had done about being in two worlds. He can't walk the straight life. He is and has been born into and lives and is a part of intrinsically the criminal underworld. So he can't just up and leave like she's asking him to do, but she is giving him that chance for a way out, that leave this all behind. I think, deep down, Maya is absolutely clear in her own mind that it was the Kingpin's decision, not as such Kazi's. And she knows, how forceful he is. So she does try and give him that way out to come with her, but ultimately, he is unable to do that. He has to do what that. There's an element of fate there. So, but Kazi again gets stabbed by an arrow into the gut.
But remember, he did try and kill her first with it, so it wasn't that she picked it up. So at least
absolutely.
It was twisted on him.
Yeah.
But that's what I wondered about the conversation. There is something in the conversation that just didn't. I just wasn't 100% sure of whether it was jealousy of him saying I was supposed to take over the tracksuit mafia when your father was killed. Was that the deal? Because we talked about that earlier on in the season, but that's supposed to be the deal with Kingpin, that he would have her father killed and then he'd take over. He says to her, this was never supposed to be your life. This was my life. Yeah. And I don't know whether it was jealousy from him, as I say, that she took over the leadership because it was her father, or whether he was saying you were supposed to be protected from this life.
I think it's both, probably to an element, but it certainly came across for me as being more because of how, I guess that relationship and how she had been kind of protected by her father, that there was an element of that still. But I think it's probably a little bit of both, to be honest, from him.
I think it would help if we knew how involved Maya was in the tracksuit mafia before her father died. I'm just not too sure. I know she turned up to his place of work effectively to find him being killed by Ronan, but I just wasn't sure of whether she was involved in the tracksuit mafia or not early on. I think it would help if we knew that. Maybe we'll see that in her own show.
No, very much so.
Definitely. I think this is the bit that probably just lacked that little bit of extra screen time for me around Maya, her making that link, looking to and why she was choosing to sort of bring Kazi along with her, and also his skin in this game, exactly where he lied on this.
Exactly.
I think what we'll see that in Echo. I think Fisk and Kazi will be back in Echo.
Maybe.
In both senses, because Kazi will, in the comic books, has a different look altogether. And I think potentially they'll bring that look more comic accurate in a future place.
Okay.
But we'll see.
He looked pretty dead, but you never know.
Much like comic books.
Yeah, exactly.
No one is truly dead until you put them in a funeral and put their heart on a floating barge and put it out to sea, much like Tony Stark.
Exactly. Right now, Tony Stark and Natasha Romanoff are the only two dead people in the entire MCU at this stage. There is the one final battle, and I'm so glad it happened. This battle between Kate and Kingpin.
You forget how much of a boss level he is and what damage he can take, because he took a lot of damage there, like being run over. Significant amounts of an arrow right into the chest, and the fight in the toy store with Kate, and presumably a gunshot we don't know for sure, but certainly one did ring out. Whether it was directed at the heart of Kingpin or the forehead of Kingpin, we don't really know, or whether it was just a Point Break type moment from Maya.
Yeah. I feel like the conversation of we're family felt like she may just shoot up into the air. But again, the accidental killing of Kazi, which is what it felt like. It felt like she was fighting with him for the arrow and stabbed him during that kind of accidental way, which killed him. I feel like she wasn't intent on killing Kingpin. Yeah. It was interesting that they cut away and we hear the sound of the bullet. Partly, you would never show someone getting shot in the head on a TV show, especially not at Disney Plus. But it also gives them an out if they want to bring back Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin. It gives them an out to say, right, we'll just shoot that from a different angle.
Well, I did think it was funny just simply because if it was the case, you're like, you've only just brought him back. No.
Yeah, exactly. Look, there's a reason that he is alive. This battle between Fisk and Bishop in the toy store, just for me, like really solidified Kate's worth as an Avenger, as a potential future Avenger, and solidified her role within the MCU. She stood toe to toe with a man who got, as you said, run over, multiple arrows in the chest, one direct arrow in the chest, multiple other arrows, and kind of trick arrows and things like that, and still kept on going.
Yeah.
Like, he one-handedly picked her up and flung her through multiple pieces of wood. Like, he is a beast, as you said, boss level.
Yeah. And Clint gives her props, that you came out the other side of an encounter with Kingpin. Yeah. You held your own, you managed to sort of neutralize him. So, like even from the Meister, of Hawkeye, he's giving her the props for that. So, yeah, really good.
Absolutely. And then the final resolution of the hero story here that we have for Kate Bishop, not only is she able to go toe to toe with a massive villain like Kingpin on her own, best him. Unfortunately, the cops don't pick him up because he's able to get out of there, but did love the moment where she was able to activate the arrowheads to take him out. I thought that was a great use because he'd already snapped the arrows, so she couldn't use them the way she normally could. But the final resolution of her story is she's realized her mother is the villain, and she called in her as the murderer of Armand III and let her mother be taken away on Christmas Eve to prison for the murder.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Yeah, well, the pleading from her mother going, is this what heroes do? Send their mothers to prison? Well, yes, they do. If their mothers are criminals, that's the response that Kate doesn't need to say. But yeah, that's the resolution of her arc. Effectively, she is willing to do exactly what she needs to do to prove that she is the hero.
As an origin, it's not a bad one.
Great one.
Like, this 6-episode series origin of Kate Bishop, have to say, as an ending arc, as a conclusion to this, it's pretty darn good.
It is.
Like, it's you basically see with the power comes the responsibility. I'm not going to say great power and great responsibility.
Different property. Different property.
Different IP.
Those lines are owned by Sony now, Chris. Yes.
True.
But you can't leave your major character without a family on Christmas Day, even though she has sent off her mother to prison and her father's definitely dead now, confirmed in this episode. Jacques did have a little bit of a connection with her there. He did defend her in the episode, so there will be a relationship with them in the future. Yeah. But exactly as we predicted from the first episode, Kate is invited to the dinner table of the Bartons back at Casa del Barton, or the Barton farm. He doesn't make it home in time for Christmas, I would argue, but he's back on Christmas Day, and they just start Christmas Day a little later than they would have done if he'd arrived.
But we don't know what time. It's daytime, so it could be 7 a.m. Christmas Day.
Yes.
Wherever they are in the middle of nowhere, where the farm is, we know it is, maybe it's early sunrise, early daylight, so it's like 8 a.m. We'll call it 8 a.m. Christmas morning.
Yeah, he makes it back in time. And yes. With Kate and Lucky with his actual name, Lucky the pizza dog, getting his name from Grills last episode, officially is there with them all. So we've created this family unit, effectively with Kate Bishop allowed to come along.
He's also giving his son a Nerf gun.
Of course he is.
Which he's always wanted. I'm like, For a man who's like constantly surrounded by weapons, do you kind of like, are you gonna train your son in weaponry? I'd be like, you'd expect that he'd just like, here's a flower.
I know.
It's how early do you start them? Because he's already started his daughter. She's well trained in arrow work. So it's how early was he going to start his youngest son?
It's like a difference between an arrow and a gun.
Yeah. And I did wonder what the kids must feel because, you know, they're kids. So I guess they're a little bit kind of selfish going, but we just wanted our family. Yeah. Now we've got this Kate Bishop that we've got to entertain. It just needs to be us. Want slob on
a dog. He
well,
brought a dog.
Yeah, the dog. Yeah, that is true. That was the distraction. Yeah, definitely.
So should we talk about the $10 million Rolex in the room?
I'd rather not. I'm trying to ignore that because the episode went from pretty much a 10 out of 10 for me to about a 7 out of 10 just with this moment. So I'm trying to ignore it. But yes, we get confirmation here. Laura is a former S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. The designation on the back of the watch is 19. Agent 19 is sadly the designation of Bobby Morse, aka Mockingbird, who has been seen for 2 to 3 wonderful seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And now we have a new actress playing her in here. They, I guess, could argue it away that they've just recast her. But it's a bit unfortunate. This does seem to put the nail in the coffin of Marvel TV's Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. that it takes place in the same universe as the rest of the MCU. I hate this. Absolutely hate this choice. They had so many options. Could have sorted it out just simply the Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. sign on the back with Laura written on it. That's Laura Brown from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That could have resolved it, but for some reason they wanted to say she's Agent 19 Bobby Morse. I can't imagine her ever taking up the mantle. I can't imagine seeing her in the outfit, leaving her kids behind and going out fighting in the MCU. So I don't know why they made this choice.
I think it's possible that they'll argue that it's a codename. They potentially in the future, the out is, well, there are 2 outs. 1, multiverse, which is now always a possibility. 2, it's essentially it's a designation. There are multiple Agent 19s, and it's not Bobby Morse. She is a Agent 19. This is Laura, Agent 19.
I can't see it. I think I think the way that they will choose to do this is say that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. took place in a multiverse unconnected to the main MCU, which is a sad choice.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I mean, the thing is, that's the problem with the multiverse now. It's just used as an out, and I hope it doesn't just get to that point where they can just use it to do any old random nonsense. But like this, I mean, the thing is as well, I'm even just slightly unsure as to the importance of this watch now. Whatever about it being her own personal item, but why were the Tracksuit Mafia going after it? Was it simply because Maya thought that Ronan must have been Hawkeye? But I don't think that's been clear through the season. So this watch has been a little bit of a red herring, I think, actually, and or MacGuffin, whatever you want to call it, which kind of has ultimately led to the situation where it is a designation for Bobby Morse, aka Mockingbird, and the ramifications for Derek personally of that.
And all Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
And all Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fans as well. I mean, I would, rather than starting to draw in multiverses or this, that, and the other, I would simply just want to say it's like 007, as we saw in No Time to Die, that, like you said, Chris, this is just someone else that's taken on Agent 19 because Mockingbird has moved away from that. But alas, yes, that's probably not how it works in Marvel.
Well, remember, S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't exist, so this is an old Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. that would have happened at the same time as Bobby Morse being Agent 19 at the time. The one benefit I could see, potentially we will see the character of Laura back in the future, and maybe the next time we see Kate, maybe if there is a season 2 of Hawkeye starring Kate Bishop, that she teams up with Laura instead and leaves Clint behind to take care of the kids. Maybe that's the way you do a season 2 of Kate Bishop Hawkeye.
So I do think they may do a season 2. And I think now that they've teased Agent 19, I think she will be a face, and there will be a flashback, or there'll be something now. They've teased enough with this. And this was additionally a bit where I was hoping with an Easter egg, but it's not there. But we do get the end of one superhero, anti-hero. The Ronin is no more. Mm-hmm. It's official. Yeah. Ronin has been
barbecued.
barbecued, filleted, roasted.
Yeah.
Much like chestnuts on an open fire, these are Ronins on a barbecue. That's gone now. Although we do get the birth of Lady Hawk.
Yeah. I think she's going to just become Hawkeye. I think that was exactly what Clint was saying. Nobody else is using the title. You might as well use it. So hopefully we'll get Hawkeye Kate Bishop in the future.
Yes.
Excellent stuff. I think that's it for our discussion about the episode. We do have to take our podcast off to get taken care of for Christmas. So I know John has to leave us pretty soon. But let's wrap up the episode the way we usually do. Did this episode stick the landing, John? Do you defend Hawkeye episode 6? So this is Christmas.
Yes, I do defend this episode to give it 4 explosive eggnogs out of 5. I just thought it was a nice wrap up. I think there were some elements that were missing for me, certainly around Maya. It feels that just didn't quite have its own section, whereas Eleanor's story was wrapped up really nicely and everything around that. I think just a little bit more for me on that, but I love the action. I love the big showdown at the Rockefeller Plaza. I love the resolution between Yelena and Clint. I thought that was spot on. I think that's the only way it should have ended, and they got that. Whatever about the watch and Agent 19, to me it felt a little superfluous. Ultimately, in the end, as to what that really meant, and it wasn't really clear, and I think it probably is just a red herring. But maybe it's the watch for her friend, so it could be that. Maybe that's why. I don't know. But let's hope that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. remains firmly planted in the MCU. I loved Vincent D'Onofrio being so integral to this as well. Maybe you could argue just because of how he plays Kingpin, I guess our sort of nostalgia and of Daredevil on Marvel Netflix, it took slightly away from Kate and Clint, but I really liked Kate and Clint as well in this. It felt it cemented their partnership. It was said by Hawkeye, and I really can't wait to see Kate Bishop back running around firing arrows and killing more people at street level on another religious festival. I think that would be maybe we can move it to Easter next time. And there could be a bit of death at Easter as well. But I love this as a final Christmassy episode of a Christmassy series. I do defend this with 4 explosive eggnogs out of 5. Chris, do you defend Hawkeye episode 6?
I really enjoyed this. I thought it was... did it stick the landing? Yes. But much like Liana, it was a superhero landing and it was like, ew. I really enjoyed it. It was really good, but there was these 1 or 2 threads that just felt a bit too wrapped up, too much in a bow. I think it could have been expanded across 2 episodes maybe, because it was just a quick, slightly rushed, even though it was an hour. I think that probably says more that I just want to spend more time with these characters. I want to spend more time with Yelena. I want to spend more time with, and I've known that since Black Widow, but Kate Bishop and Jeremy Renner as Clint Barton. I want to see it all. I also wanted to see Maya. I think the whole Maya storyline, I think, was rushed because we know there's a definitive series, 6 episodes probably coming in the future. So that's going to be explored there. We don't know when Hawkeye will return. And I mean that both with Kate Bishop Hawkeye and Clint Barton Hawkeye, and even in this case, Yelena. It could have done with post-credits. It could have done with very much, like, Hawkeye will return in 2022, blah, blah, blah. It could have done with that just as enough that we know there is a future for these characters, because right now, we don't. I think that's somewhat, from a contained story, it was good, but it just left me with going, I want to see more. And that is the problem. It's a good problem, Don't get me wrong. It still just felt to me like it was just like, here's your Christmas present, and it's this amazing toy, but there's no batteries included. So it's that kind of like, it was just, I really enjoy this.
Was it that bad?
No.
Chris?
Okay, let's say, sorry, batteries were included, but they only had like 20% of life.
Okay.
There you go. So it was running out too soon, and I want to play with them more. So there you go. So yes, I enjoyed it. I really did. It was just much like Yelena's superhero landing. Oh, no. It's just, hey, it's on point. But Derek, what did you think of this finale of Hawkeye season 1, hopefully of 2? So it is Christmas.
It's a really interesting point you make, actually, Chris, that this is the only one of the 4 live action shows that we've had this year that hasn't ended with something's going to happen in the future. Yeah. We had Vision flying off one way. We had Wanda leading us into the multiverse of madness back in WandaVision. We had Captain America and the Winter Soldier leading into the Captain America and the Winter Soldier movie coming up. We have Loki saying we're getting a season 2, and this show ended and had a dance sequence afterwards to say this is the end of the Hawkeye story. This is how it all wraps up. And I think it is. I think this is the end of Clint Barton's story. I think that's it. It's over. We don't get a resolution, despite the jokes. We don't get a resolution that Kate Bishop is going to become Hawkeye in the future. She may just keep the name Kate Bishop. It isn't definitive that she will be Hawkeye in Hawkeye season 2. But what it did do, and what it really did accomplish, I was joking earlier on about the episode being a 7 out of 10 because of the Agent 19 reveal. It absolutely wasn't. This nailed the landing completely for me. This closed off the story, resolved everything for every major character in the show. We know May is coming back in her own series in the future, so I can accept that her story was a little bit rushed because we may get that expanded in the future. We now have a cast of characters that they can draw on. We'll see the Tracksuit Mafia hopefully back in that show, or we won't. She seemed like she was running off. She filled up her bag and was about to leave the city effectively. So she may be going off on a completely different adventure. But everything else in the show, as the credits rolled, had been resolved. We have a really good story here. And I always say, if you're going to tell a story, don't tell the story for what will happen in season 5. Tell the story that you can tell to the best of your ability by the end of that story. Marvel, when it's done something bad in the past, it's because they've tried to lead into something that will happen 4 or 5 years down the line. I'm glad they chose to resolve this in this 6-episode series for Clint Barton's Hawkeye and resolve his story, finish it up, and they can go whatever way they want to in the future, which I really like.
Yeah, that's true.
And wonderful to see Vincent D'Onofrio back, of course, in this episode. So great to see Yelena in here. Banter with Kate was fantastic. Loved it, and I'm really hoping we're going to see her in future. And as John mentioned, I'd love to see how that resolves what's happening with Val. You know, we understand from this season that Yelena seems to have taken on the role of a hired killer, and that Val came to her with this contract for Clint Barton. She hasn't resolved that contract, so what happens? How will that play out in future? That'll be really interesting to see. But overall, loved this. Thought it was one of the best shows we've seen this year.
Yeah.
On the Marvel side, definitely. Really well resolved. With that said, before you go, John, do you want to give your final pub quiz question for the season of Hawkeye?
Yes, fellow quizzers, fellow defenders, let's hope you have hit the target with the 5 questions so far, but it is episode 6, so it is question 6. What colour coat was Yelena wearing when she arrived at the party at the Rockefeller Center?
Yes, before she revealed her own superhero outfit underneath it.
Indeed.
John, do you want to give it one more time?
Absolutely. What colour coat was Yelena wearing when she arrived at the party at the Rockefeller Center?
That's it. That's all the questions for Hawkeye Pub Quiz for the season. Get those answers into us at feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com before the 31st of December. And on our wrap-up podcast, we will be awarding our goodies to the Hawkeye winner of the pub quiz.
Yes.
Right, John, say goodbye to Podcat Charlie for us.
I will do. And also to our fellow defenders, thank you for joining us in 2021. A big Merry Christmas and have a festive time with friends, family, relatives, whoever you're spending your Christmas with. And looking forward to all the wrap-ups. There is the Wheel of Time as well. So as always, remember, keep watching, keep listening, and keep defending. And dare I say it, keep eggnogging over this festive period as well.
Right, bye, John.
See ya. Bye.
Bye. So let's move on to some feedback from our fellow defenders. They've either sent in to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, or they've gone over to the website where they've gone to tvpodcastindustries.com and left us a voicemail, or they've headed on over to facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries where we have the spoiler posts, and they've left spoilerific discussion points there. First up, we have an email from Jerry on Hawkeye episode 5. He had this to say: "Hey guys, episode 5 was amazing. Yelena blipped and we learn what she has been doing since. The bros are so fun. Run DMC should play every time they're on screen, bro. Jack being arrested feels fake. I refuse to believe he will not get a sword fight in at least the last episode. I got a little emotional when Clint turned off his hearing aid to talk to Natasha at the Avengers Memorial. Yelena and Kate, very sexy couple together. Bros with weapons are such a bad combination. Echo realizing her world is about to change. Look out, world. Here comes Echo, who is about to whoop that big apple. Will Echo become Ronin like she did in the comics? One final thing. Kingpin is coming. Kingpin is coming. Thanks, Jerry in Niceville." Thanks, Jerry. Yes, Kingpin did come. He did come all the way to this episode, and boy, did it. Will Echo become Ronin? Not unless her seamstress skills wants to kind of start. Well, she can mimic anything, so potentially she just has to watch someone in a sewing shop, and boom, bish bash, she has her own Ronin outfit.
Like, it's a good call. I love the idea that she would take on the mantle of the person that killed her father. I love that idea that she would take that on and kind of take the reputation and carry that forward as a future way. But yes, you're right. We see that the Ronin outfit itself has been burnt in this episode. So unlikely she'll be becoming Ronin in future. But some really good predictions there from episode 5. This came in, from Jerry just after we'd recorded our last podcast. So I couldn't put it into the episode itself, but even predicting the fact that Jock does get a sword fight in the episode. Okay. I will say him getting out of prison that quickly made me want to slap him again, because it's like, oh, rich people. He got arrested for a murder of his uncle. No time to investigate it at all. He's back out in the streets in time to go for a party. I think it's that night.
Yeah.
He even says, when he's being taken away by the cops, I'll be back out later today, So we didn't see any of that investigation at all. And he's back out in the streets. Yeah. It just felt like, bought his way out of prison. There. But thanks very much, Jerry. Good to hear your thoughts on episode 5. We also received an email in from Suzanne Nelson. She says, "Hi guys, loved episode 5 of this show. From the cold open scene with the Black Widow music and the whistle that the girls used to signal each other, really pulled at those heartstrings all the way through to Kingpin's reveal, followed by You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch music at the end of the episode. They have both the dramatic and comedic timing in this show on point. Favorite scene was definitely the chat in Kate's burned out apartment. Not only was the banter flawless, but it's definitely left me wanting more of these two and hoping to see them fighting on the same side. It also vindicated my liberal use of hot sauce, usually Tabasco, on my mac and cheese, for which I've received endless crap about for years." Definitely my favorite episode of the show so far. Mele Kalikimaka and Hawale Makiki Ho. Happy New Year to all of you, and mahalo. Thank you for your awesome podcast, from Suzanne Nelson. That's some Hawaiian from Suzanne. Thanks so much, Suzanne. That's really nice of you.
Mahalo to you too. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And Nulliconagwit from us Irish speakers on the podcast as well.
Sure. I can't even say that one.
Chris, surely you can say Happy Christmas in Irish after all of these years you've lived in Ireland.
Do you get on Will Cadigum Gudi on letters?
No, Chris. Okay. No, Chris. Nulliconagwit.
Nulliconagwit. There you go.
There you go. Especially for you, Suzanne. Thanks so much. Yeah, great episode in episode 5. Really good fun.
Yes, thank you so much. We also received an email from Andrew Davis, who had this to say: "Good morning, Derek, John, and Chris. Before we get to the season finale of Hawkeye, I have a theory of what happened all those years ago with Clint Barton. What if Vanessa, Wilson Fisk's fiance, got blipped? The Kingpin is exactly the kind of person that would say, she is perfect. She did not deserve to be taken from me, from my existence. And then he found Hawkeye and convinced Clint that truly evil people deserve to die rather than he and Clint's loved ones. It would explain why Clint changed and how he harbors so much guilt. Take care, Andrew Davis. That's not a bad theory. It could happen. We do not see them together in this, so there potentially might be some connection in the future, but it would be more, he doesn't know that the Avenger is Ronan, so
yeah,
we would, Ronan is still, his identity is anonymous at the end of this.
That's right. Yeah, that's the only kind of reference to that conversation. Yeah, that's a really good point, Chris. I could see how it worked, though, Andrew. It's a really good theory, but not played out in the episode, unfortunately. But thanks very much for sending us in your thoughts on episode 5 as well. One final email in on episode 5 before we get some feedback on episode 6. Roberta Ritvo sent us an email to say, "Dear Defenders, I just discovered your podcast for Hawkeye, and I'm thrilled you're podcasting Wheel of Time too. I appreciate hearing about details I missed and connections I didn't make. One thing that's been bugging me is why Clint has 2 cell phones. Kate enters her number into a flip phone, which we see again in later episodes, but we also see that he has a smartphone. Given that almost every detail in the MCU shows and movies is meticulously planned, I've been waiting for this to be important, or at least explained, but so far, nothing. Did you guys notice it too? Assuming it's not explained in episode 6 either, what's your theory about this? Wishing you and all the Defenders a happy new year, Roberta." I read Roberta's email earlier on this week and was able to have time to formulate my theory, so I'll go first, Chris, in case you want to have it.
Oh, I have it. I have the theory.
My theory is that, do you remember there was a phone that Captain America left behind with Tony Stark where Captain America could be reached at all times?
Yep.
I wonder if this is the Avengers phone. They use a regular cell phone rather than a smartphone, to be able to be in contact with each other. I wonder if that's the reason why he has it. I also think Clint's not great on his smartphone either. So I think he might also just keep 2 phones because he finds it much easier to use old style cell phones.
I think it's literally that. I think it's option 1. I think it is essentially work phone, personal phone. Work is the Avengers phone, personal is his family phone. And that's really the difference.
That's
it's like we've all got those. So he should really get a dual SIM phone, but there's no Tony around to kind of help him with his tech support anymore, so
he's got kids. They could sort that out. Weirdly, Chris and myself both met working at a mobile phone company, and it's one of those weird things that we've learned over the years that actually old style cell phones have much better signal than smartphones do. You're able to keep in contact with people much easier than you would be able to with a smartphone, because they're trying to do so much more with the computer in your hand now with smartphones than old phones used to be able to do with just making calls and receiving texts. So a lot of our sales agents used to carry an old style cell phone along with a smartphone, which I always thought was quite funny.
God, I remember that.
There you go. So good catch, Roberta, which we hadn't caught before.
Exactly.
And thanks so much for your email. Great that you found us, and I hope you're enjoying the Wheel of Time podcast as well.
I know, and we're getting episode 8 this week. The finale of Wheel of Time is happening as well. We will be recording our thoughts on it later in the year, just because it comes out Christmas Eve. We got to take a quick break with the family, but we will have it. So if you have any thoughts, Roberta, or any of the fellow Defenders, make sure you send any feedback to feedback@tvpodcastindustry.com, or pop on over to tvpodcastindustry.com and leave us a voicemail or anything there.
Absolutely. Or go over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries. You can leave your thoughts on the spoiler post for the finale of Wheel of Time. But we also have some feedback on the Hawkeye finale from our Facebook group. First up, Claire Payne says, an awesome finale. I saw everything that I hoped for in the first 30 minutes. Kingpin and his connection to Eleanor, Kate and Clint in their new suits, a great elevator fight between Yelena and Kate, and a nice montage of the creation of trick arrows. I've only watched it once and sat there grinning the whole way through. I'm glad we got the ending of Kate joining the Bartons. So what's next? Is Kingpin dead? Will we see Yelena and Kate team up? Whatever happens, I enjoyed every second of this show and thankful for getting an hour-long finale. And oh, the joy for the post-credit scene of Rogers the Musical number in full. Happy Christmas, Defenders. Thanks so much, Claire. I know exactly what you mean. I was smiling the whole way through the episode as well. Really, a really good, fun bit of Christmas joy, before we get to close out the season.
Yes. Very much so. We also have some feedback from Heather Wallace, who said, "We all love Jack now, don't we? He was fabulous and seemingly hold no grudges against either Eleanor for framing him or Kate for her hostility. The only time he was annoyed was when he had a spot of blood on his cravat. What a top bloke. And I loved how he took down Armand the Seventh. Speaking of the Armands, Armand the Third would have to be the great-great-grandfather of Armand the Seventh. Do they have all the kids at 15? No wonder Armand the Seventh is interested in Jack's wine collection so young. So Laura is an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., as we all expected. The Watch is either the most MacGuffin-y MacGuffin to ever MacGuffin. Why exactly were the bros after it at the black market auction? Or they will be part of a spin-off. Yelena and Kate's fight scene through the building was so good. It had great choreography and banter. The elevator scene was gold, and kudos to Kate for slowing it down by pressing all the buttons. Very clever. I was also impressed with Yelena's hair braid. Top-notch work. Yes, this is me, Chris speaking. And yes, it was. Even I went, that is some cool mohawky hair braid. Damn.
Very impressive.
Yes.
Very impressive.
Heather went on to say, Clint and Yelena's fight scene was similar to Sam Wilson and Carly's. Neither was fighting, just defending, while the other person's rage wore away. Hearing Nat's whistle was moving, although I do wonder how Val will take the commission not being completed. The full number of Rogers the Musical was hilarious. Adam Pascal, who played the first New Yorker, looked like he was going to burst out laughing any second. I wonder if in this MCU reality there's an actor called Chris Evans. I hear he loves donning tap shoes and getting out the jazz hands. He'd be perfect to lead in the musical. Merry Christmas to everyone, and huge thanks to Derek, John and Chris for such sterling work on so many projects this year. Thank you so much, Heather. That's really appreciative. And yeah, look, I think The Watch is going to be the one that's going to have to be explained at some point. I really do.
I'm hoping it's just a nod and they never explain it, so we can all assume that it's not Bobby Morse. They just leave it there as an Easter egg, and us Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fans get annoyed for a while and then it just goes away. But yes, possibly this is, as I say, the connection for Laura being brought in to season 2 as an active former agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Maybe that's the way they'll go. Thanks so much, Heather, and thanks so much for your thoughts, and thanks for your kindness throughout this year as well. Hopefully you have a good Christmas period, and hopefully all of our fellow defenders do. We didn't have time to capture all of your feedback for this episode as we're recording the day of release of Hawkeye episode 6. If you do want to send us feedback, or if you're sharing your feedback in the group, we'll come back to it on our wrap-up podcast at the start of January. Please don't forget to send in your answers to the pub quiz questions. All 6 of them are available over on tvpodcastindustries.com or on the episodes that you've hopefully been listening to throughout the last month and a half. Really good series overall for Hawkeye. Really looking forward to seeing what Marvel bring us next year in all of the shows that we'll be covering from the MCU next year.
Yes. So guys, thank you so much. We do appreciate your time, your effort. We'll get more into our personal favorites, shows and episodes of all the things we've covered in our wrap up, but we want to hear yours. Tell us anyway. We do appreciate your feedback. We appreciate your listens. And you know what? We also appreciate your patronage if and how you've support us, be it through patreon.com, be it through buymeacoffee.com, be it through just liking and sharing the podcast or leaving a review. Every little helps. It is always appreciative, and also just listening and engaging with us, because we love having our fellow defenders there with us, listening and enjoying the shows along with us.
Absolutely, yes. And just to say, Spotify have just brought in their rating system for their podcast. So if you do listen to us over on Spotify, click the 5-star rating there for us. That'd be really nice of you. It does allow the podcast to be picked up, especially with Spotify just introducing it. They are well known as an algorithm type of company. So if you give us a 5-star rating there, hopefully it'll surface the podcast for other future fellow defenders.
Yes.
For TV Podcast Industries. Thanks so much for joining us throughout the year, and thanks so much for joining us for Hawkeye. We hope to see you back next year for more MCU goodness.
Yes. And I don't want to leave on a threat, but if you don't put us for 5 stars on Spotify, I will sing I Can Do This All Day in full on a podcast. Or maybe that's a Patreon exclusive. I don't know. It's a threat or a promise. Either way, please give us a 5-star rating. We thank you so much, and we will be back in a couple of weeks with our next episode. But more importantly, we'll also be back with our Wheel of Time episode 8 finale review. And then we'll be back with our year in review, as always, in the new year. Thank you from everyone in TV podcast industries, myself, John, and Derek. I am speaking for all of us, and even our podcast and my podcast, who are on their way to their lovely current Christmas homes away from
holiday
home.
Destinations. Yes, exactly. Hopefully you have a good time over your holiday period. Whatever you're up to, whether you're just sitting listening to us on Christmas Day or whether you're sharing it with family and friends, enjoy it. We will be back with you very soon.
Yes. Thank you so much. Speak to you again soon. Bye.